Hey everybody! Welcome to Monster Monday for September 12th, 2022. I'm your host, DM Gallibond, and tonight we're going to continue looking at the monsters from the Critical Role Call of the Netherdeep sourcebook by looking at the Occultists of the Vermilion Dream. Now, like the monastics that we looked at a few weeks ago, the occultists from the Consortium of the Vermilion Dream are a faction that is active in Matt Mercer's world of Critical Role known as Exandria. They're a secret society that is obsessed with the magic of the Moon of Ill Omen known as Ruidus. Now, this makes them a fascinating and interesting group that could be a template for a secret society in just about any campaign game world. By studying the different roles of the agents within the consortium and imagining a higher level boss operative or mastermind, if you will, we could lift these monsters out of the critical role world and place them in your own campaign by changing their titles and the focus of their organization to whatever esoteric knowledge you want to be at the heart of a campaign story arc. According to research in Critical Role fan sites outside of the Netherdeep sourcebook, all of the references that I found to the Occultists of the Vermilion Dream point back to the Netherdeep sourcebook itself. I don't think that this group has appeared in any of the campaigns that Matt Mercer and his friends have played through on the Critical Role Twitch channel, but I think this is a faction that was made up specifically for this particular book that they put out with Wizards of the Coast. This image right here is an image of the Occult Extollant, who is one of the three various types of occultists that we are introduced to in the book. The Occultists of the Vermilion Dream are tied to the very origin story of the campaign itself. They're also one of the factions that shadows, harries, and perhaps even makes an alliance with the characters along the way. And that really depends on how everyone RPs the situation and how all of your players decide they want to navigate the various different factions and opportunities that are presented for them. They will run into members of the consortium from the time they reach Betrayer's Rise, and they will continue to have dealings with them all the way through the rest of the campaign. Now, I don't want to say too much about the specific role of the consortium because that would be kind of spoilers on the campaign story itself. But the way the campaign is written makes it clear there are a number of different scenarios and a number of different outcomes that your players could have when dealing with the consortium of the Vermilion Dream, depending on the attitudes and motives of any particular group of PCs that are going through the campaign. Let's take a look at the description of the three different types of occultists that we see. Now, the first one, they introduce them in alphabetic order, but when we talk about their mechanics, we're going to go in order of their power level. The first one they talk about in the book is the Occult Extollant. And the Occult Excellents delve deep into ancient legends and seek to solve mysteries that have led other investigators to their doom, driven by unquenchable yearning to know the unknown. Then we have the Occult Initiates. And Occult Initiates are the most recent inductees into the organization and the members of the organization that are most often encountered by outsiders. And in fact, it is one of these occult initiates that is the first member of the group that the PCs encounter during the campaign. And then we have the occult Silvertongue, which is the highest level Vermilion Dream operative that is mentioned in the book. Now, these occult Silvertongues are charismatic leaders. The alien mysteries to which they expose themselves can leave them feeling restless, paranoid, and suspicious. They begin to see things that aren't there and imagine conspiracies brought on by fears that others are trying to supplant them. And also, they have a relationship with a certain element that is part of their occult studies. And as we can see from this image of Master Eridrine, the owl, who is an occult Silvertongue that is named in the book, um, exposure to this element can actually have physical consequences to members of the Vermilion Dream. Now let's talk a little bit about the lore and tactics of these different occultists. So, the consortium of the Vermilion Dream is viewed as an esoteric, profit driven, but ultimately harmless cabal of ghost hunters and perpetuators of urban legends. This perception isn't inaccurate, but the consortium's leadership is obsessed with one set of legends in particular, those involving the moon of ill omen, Ruidus, and the ancient figures cursed by exposure to its alien influence. The cruelest desires and predilections of the consortium's most obsessive agents have been enhanced by contact with ruidium tainted items. If the Extollant can prepare for combat, it will likely engage mage armor, and it may use minor illusion or major image to confuse its opponents. It can attack from range with its Crimson Bolt attacks, and it will target a powerful enemy with its Phantasmal Force spell. Now, when you're facing the initiate might use Mage Hand or Light to misdirect opponents as it prepares for combat, and it may use Levitate if that will help it get to a place of tactical advantage, and it will likely open the combat with its Arcane Blast attack to deal damage to multiple enemies and perhaps scatter them on the battle map. If the Silvertongue has time to prepare for battle, will likely engage mage armor and may use the elemental servitor or charm person, depending on how hostile or how imminent combat appears to be. The servitor will likely try to get its earth elemental to run physical interference while it falls back to hurl crimson bolts at enemies. And of course, if defeat is imminent, the Silvertongue will try to use Dimension Door to escape the combat entirely. These occultists are all humanoids, or really, we could say they are playable races. And I think that we're going to find a lot of times that monsters that are in the older campaigns that are presented as humanoids and have the class tags on them, like all of these occultists, as we will see, have the sorcerer class tag on them. So I think we're eventually going to see Wizards of the Coast slightly modify and probably will say that any creature that has a class uh, tag on it could be any playable race. And of course, with the recent Spelljammer source book, as well as a couple of other source books that have come out over the last few years, there are now several races that are non humanoids. But for the most part, you're going to run into humanoids that are members of the occultants of the Vermilion Dream, and all of the ones presented in Matt Mercer's source book are indeed classified as humanoids. Let's take a look at the mechanics of the Occult Initiate. Now, the Occult Initiate is a CR2 monster, which means that it's a suitable opponent for a level 1 party in Tier 1. It's a medium or small humanoid with a sorcerer tag. It could be any alignment. Armor class 12 or 15 with mage armor, 12d8 plus 12 hit points, speed of 30 feet. Proficiency bonus is plus 2. Strength is 10, dex is 14, con is 12, intelligence 14, wisdom is 10, and charisma is 16. And it's got bonuses on arcana, deception, history, and perception. Passive perception of 12, and common plus one other language. So then it attacks with a short sword, plus 4 to hit, 5 feet range, 1d6 plus 2 piercing, plus 2d6 psychic damage. Then it has a range attack, which is this arcane blast, and that's a recharge attack. And that's out to 120 feet, and it's a 20-foot radius. So it sets off this blast, and anybody in the area must make a DC 13 dex save, and on a failed save, it takes 3d6 force damage and is pushed 10 feet away from the center of that area. On a successful save, it takes half as much damage and is not pushed. So then for spell casting, it can cast one of the following spells requiring no material components and using charisma as the spell casting ability. For a spell save DC of 13, it can do light, mage hand, those are at will, and then once a day detect magic and levitate. Then we have the occult Extollant. That is a CR6 monster, which means that it's a appropriate challenge for a level 4 party, still at tier 1. Medium or small humanoid, again with a sorcerer tag and any alignment. Armor class is 12 or 15 with mage armor, 14 d8 plus 28 hit points, speed of 30 feet. It's got a similar stat block to the initiate. The stats are increased a little bit. For example, its charisma is now bumped up to 18. So saving throw bonuses on wisdom and charisma, and then skills are arcana, deception, history, perception, and stealth. And it has resistance to psychic damage. It has dark vision out to 60 feet, passive perception of 15, and has common plus 2 other languages. Now, proficiency bonus is +3, and it makes 2 Crimson Bolt attacks. So those are either melee or ranged spell attacks, and +7 to hit with 3d10 +4 psychic damage. Then it also has the spell casting feature. Cast one of the following spells requiring no material component. Spell save DC 15. At will, it can do minor illusion. Once per day, it can do mage armor, major image, and phantasmal force. And then the reactions are reflect agony. So when the Extollant is damaged by a creature within 60 feet, the creature must make a DC 15 wisdom save or take 3d10 psychic damage on a failed saving throw or half as much damage on a successful one. The last of the occultants that are presented in the sourcebook itself is the occult Silvertongue. This is a monster that is CR8, so it's appropriate challenge for a level 5 party at tier 2. And again, it's a medium or small humanoid with the sorcerer tag and typically lawful evil. Now, armor class is 13 or 16 with mage armor, 17 d8 plus 51 hit points, and the speed is up to 40 feet. And again, the stat block is a little bit improved across the board with a charisma now up to 20. Saving throws are wisdom and charisma. Skills are arcana, deception, history, and perception. It resists psychic damage, has the true sight out to 60 feet, a passive perception of 16, common +3 other languages, proficiency bonus of +3, and it has the alien mind feature. So if you try to read the Silvertongue's thoughts or deal damage to the Silvertongue, a creature must succeed on a DC 16 intelligence save or be stunned until the start of its next turn. It also has magic resistance, so advantage on saving throws against spell and other magical effects. It has the Crimson Bolt attack, so melee or ranged spell attack +8. Damage is 4d10 +5 psychic. Then the Silvertongue can cast one of the following spells using no material components. Twice per day it can do Charm Person, Mage Armor, or Sending. Once per day it can do Dimension Door. And then as bonus action, it has the Elemental Servitor. So it magically summons an Earth Elemental, which appears in an unoccupied space that the Silvertongue can see within 60 feet of itself. The Earth Elemental takes its turn immediately after the Silvertongue on the same initiative count and obeys the Silvertongue commands. Earth Elemental disappears after 1 minute or when the Silvertongue dies. So those are the 3 that we get in the source book. But I always like having a nice group of 4 monsters to look at. So let's take a look at maybe the Silvertongue's boss, which I am imagining as the Occult Mastermind. And this would be a monster that's an appropriate challenge for a level 11 party in Tier 3. And it's any playable race with the Sorcerer tag, typically Lawful Evil alignment, armor class of 14 or 17 with mage armor, 18 d10 plus 54 hit points, 40-foot speed, CR 16, proficiency bonus plus 5. And the ability scores are relatively similar to the Silvertongue, except for the fact that the dexterity is improved a little bit. So the attack bonus is plus 6, damage bonus plus 1. Occult Mastermind makes 2 Crimson Bolt attacks. It can substitute a spell for one of those attacks. It also makes Arcane Blast attack if the power is available. So Crimson Bolt is plus 10 to hit, reach of 5 or range of 60, and 4d10 plus 5 psychic damage. Spell casting, and have cast one of the following spells with a DC 18 saving throw. 2 each day, Charm Person, Mage Armor, Sending, and Major Image. Once per day, Phantasmal Killer and Dimension Door. Then the Arcane Blast recharges on 5 or 6, creates an explosion of magical power within 120 feet, DC 18 Dexterity save, and 8d6 force damage, and push 10 feet away from the center of the blast on a failed save. Immune to psychic damage, it has that magic resistance feat for its resistance. And then the Alien Mind, it has the Alien Mind, but the DC on that one is DC 18 to avoid being stunned until the end of its next turn. That is going to do it for our look at the Occultists of the Vermilion Dream. I have been DM Gallibond. This has been Monster Monday. I have several other shows that I do, and I don't think any of them are happening this week. The Sunday game is starting its season break. We have played through 10 levels, and we have finished the first half of the campaign, and now I need a break so that I can write the next level of the campaign. So we are going into a break. We're not going to be playing for the next few weeks. The Walker of Waterdeep game will be back in the future, but normally that is on Sundays at 2 p.m. Then on Wednesday night, we normally have the Sword Coast Chronicles at 8 p.m., which is our 5th edition love letter to the published campaigns, and where we tell a homebrew story by going through the various different storylines. Right now, we are in the Tomb of Annihilation, but like I said, we won't be back to that game until the 21st of September. And then Saturday, I think there's a game coming up on Saturday, so I don't think we will have our D&D session that night, but we're doing our old school Saturday night Greyhawk session, 7:30 p.m. on Saturday evenings. All of those are live on the Twitch channel over at twitch.tv/Gallibond, and the archives are all right here on the YouTube channel. And we do have a Patreon that is over at patreon.com/DMGallibond if you want to help us with creating more content. Next week, we're going to continue looking at the monsters from the Critical Role Call of the Netherdeep sourcebook and look at one of the other factions that your party might interact with, and that is the Scholars of Allsight. Once again, I have been DM Gallibond. This has been Monster Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've been watching this far, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, and click the post notification bell so that you get notified every time new content drops. And I will sign off, as always, by reminding you to watch out for the monsters under the bed. Good night, everyone.